Welcome back to the Respect Me series of Bullying It's Never Acceptable webinars. This is Module 3, in which we'll be looking at policy and building a policy, putting an anti-bullying policy into practice, and how a good anti-bullying policy that's been put into practice effectively can contribute towards a culture of positive relationships. Respect for All has a clear message that addressing bullying requires strategies to prevent bullying and respond to bullying. Bullying can be prevented from happening in the first place by helping to create a culture in your organisation that encourages respect, values opinion, celebrates difference, and promotes positive relationships. All of these things make it more difficult for bullying behaviour to happen. The overarching ethos of any organisation should make it clear that bullying is never acceptable and that all adults, children and young people understand the role they play in preventing and addressing bullying. Reflect on the questions that follow so you can think about your own organisation for a moment. You could use these questions after this webinar to guide a self-evaluation conversation with colleagues or at a staff meeting. Does your organisation value diversity? Is it open to new learning? Does it treat people with dignity and respect? What practices are in place? Is decision-making driven from the top down? Why are role models important in your culture? And lastly, what can you do? So pause here for a few minutes to reflect on these questions and then press play and we'll continue. Policy. Having an effective and up-to-date anti-bullying policy is an essential part of addressing bullying. Respect for All contains the expectation that all schools and local authorities will have an anti-bullying policy. Your organisation's anti-bullying policy should reflect your local authority's anti-bullying policy, which in turn should be in line with Respect for All, which is the national approach. An anti-bullying policy is where everything in this training programme should come together, from the agreed definition of bullying, a recognition of its impact, and the practical strategies an organisation will adopt in order to prevent and respond to bullying. Writing an anti-bullying policy can be a daunting process, but respectme's Policy Through to Practice resource is designed to support organisations through the process of writing an anti-bullying policy. It guides you through the steps to take and signposts you to further sources of information. It's available to download from the respectme website. Our first question for you right now is, how well do you know your organisation's anti-bullying policy? The most effective policies are straightforward to understand and can be translated easily into actual practice, which is the most important part. It should be a simple process to find and access your policy, and it should be refreshed every 3 years to ensure that it reflects your current environment. Our next question for you is, whose responsibility is it to implement an anti-bullying policy? And the answer to that is, it's every person within your organisation. It's everyone's responsibility. So in a school, for example, that's pupils, parents and staff. And if it's everyone's responsibility to implement that policy, then all those affected by it should have an input into it. Policies should be co-produced with all stakeholders, including children and young people, staff and parents and carers. It should clearly lay out what bullying is and is not. It should reinforce positive relationships and respectful behaviour and ensure that everyone, including pupils, staff and parents and carers, clearly understand what they can do to prevent bullying and how to respond to incidents of bullying behaviour if and when they do come up. So let's move on now to consider the role we all play in being a part of an organisation that promotes respect and positive relationships in a setting where bullying cannot thrive. Helping people in your organisation to understand what respect means and what it means to them personally is a useful way of engaging them in policy work as well as practices that will help to create a positive culture. Organisations where the culture is based on common values such as kindness, celebrating difference, inclusion, equality, and fairness mean that every day young people are more likely to experience an environment where they can thrive, enjoy positive relationships, and feel safe. Respect is a commonly used word. It's often at the heart of school value statements, youth work behaviour agreements, and anti-bullying policies. But what does it mean in reality, and is there a shared understanding of this in your setting? A good exercise to use when consulting with young people is to ask them what respect looks like, sounds like, and feels like. You can also do this in development work with staff. So let's have a go at that now. What does respect look like, sound like, and feel like for young people within your organisation, but also for professionals and for parents? Parents and carers are important partners and have a right to be consulted and engaged too. So press pause now and take some time to record your answers to these questions. Respect will mean something different to each individual, but there are always underlying themes of kindness, listening to each other's views, accepting difference, empathy, valuing each other, and equality. Role modelling respectful relationships is crucial to creating positive cultures and environments. Children and adults both need respect and respectful cultures. This is what creates an environment where everyone thrives. The best way to address bullying, remember, is by preventing it from happening in the first place. Respect for all signals a key shift towards the prevention of bullying and highlights the importance of respectful relationships. During Anti-Bullying Week in 2017, we launched the #RespectMeans campaign, asking young people, parents and professionals to take part in a national conversation about what respect means to them. We had a huge response. Over 1,000 individuals took part in that conversation on Twitter, and over 100 individual schools got involved. Our campaign resources were downloaded over 5,000 times, and #RespectMeans was trending on Twitter on the first day of Anti-Bullying Week. This conversation is still ongoing, and we still encourage organisations to take part. Responses included working together and not feeling left out, being accepted for who you are and what you identify with, or what you identify as, celebrating the achievements of others, and being free from bullying. There's a learning resource on the respectme website called #RespectMeans, which can be used to help facilitate conversations with young people about how developing respectful, positive relationships can help to prevent bullying, and it includes an accompanying film. So when it comes to practical anti-bullying strategies, there's a lot of great work already going on in organisations across Scotland. Over 10 years of respectme, we've seen much good practice across Scotland, and we've seen key themes emerge which we believe to be particularly vital. These themes are leadership, and that's from the bottom up as well as the top down, parental involvement, co-produced anti-bullying policies, and youth participation. We would encourage all organisations to take the opportunity to reflect and self-evaluate the progress they're making in each of these 4 key areas. It can actually be one of the most positive aspects of the respectme modules, because it's your chance to toot your own horn and realise all the great practice that you're already a part of. The questions here are a guide for conversations within your organisation, and you could take some time now to record some of your own initial thoughts. What do you currently have in place, or what are you currently doing in your setting for each area? What would be your next steps to improve practice? What are some of the challenges and solutions in this area? Don't forget the respectme Policy Through to Practice booklet contains a helpful self-evaluation tool as well. Let's have a look together at some possible conversation points for each of the 4 headings. Press pause after each of these to take notes before moving on. Firstly, leadership. Who are the key leaders in your setting? How do they illustrate leadership and anti-bullying? And is leadership bottom up or top down? Or both? Parental involvement. Do you have an engaged parent council or forum? What ways do you involve parents and carers in decision making in your setting? Do you regularly communicate and seek feedback from parents and carers? Which parents and carers do not regularly engage with your setting, and how do you try to reach them? Co-produced anti-bullying policies then. Do you have an up-to-date anti-bullying policy? Has it been developed in consultation with all those affected by it, including children, young people, parents, and support staff? And how do you ensure that it's consultative and inclusive? And now for youth participation. How do you actively engage with children and young people? How do you ensure their views are taken on board? And what opportunities are there for children and young people to influence policies and practices? On the respectme website, you'll find 2 really useful sections. There's a policy section with tons of information, as well as an anti-bullying practice section with lots more detail, hints, and tips. When it comes to putting policy into practice, there's lots you can consider. Your organisation might have to try a few different things to see what works in your setting. Review what you're doing regularly and make sure you're checking in with young people to ensure that these strategies work for them. Very often what's required is a combination of these and a willingness to try new things. There's no one magic answer. Use your knowledge of your organisation's own circumstances and feedback from all stakeholders to decide what might work best. Here are some suggestions on the screen now. Again, remember to head over to the respectme website for much more detail on all of these practices. But for now, let's briefly look at some of them together. Communication, such as challenging prejudiced language, is key. Communication from staff should consistently show that bullying and disrespectful behaviour is unacceptable. Communication should reinforce regularly the values and ethos of your organisation. For example, if prejudiced language is overheard by a member of staff, this should be challenged, even if no one has been openly affected. Training and support that ensures all staff have the knowledge, skills and confidence to fulfil their role in preventing and responding to bullying. There are lots of resources and information from respectme and other organisations. We will provide you with useful information links at the end of the 4th module. Ground rules. These can be devised by children and young people, focusing on how they should interact with each other and what they will do if they experience bullying. These will differ depending on the ages of the children involved, but they might include statements such as, "We will respect each other and our differences." Ground rules could be prominently displayed for all to see, and if bullying behaviour occurs or disrespect is shown in a relationship, the behaviour can be then checked by drawing the attention of your children and young people to these statements. Activities such as role play, artwork, drama and literature can provide further reinforcement that bullying is wrong and provide an empathetic approach to those who have been bullied or those who witness bullying. Visual reminders such as posters, signs, leaflets and badges around your organisation can also provide reinforcement. These should also be on school or organisational websites if possible. An obvious visual commitment to equality and diversity and anti-bullying gives a clear message. Youth-led initiatives. Strong participation and leadership from young people on an organisation's anti-bullying work will improve ownership and buy-in. It will ensure its resonance with young people and therefore help improve respectful relationships. For example, an anti-bullying ambassador group could be nominated and trained to have a prominent role. Peer mediation is an approach that involves children and young people in solving the problems of bullying. They're trained to provide guidance and mediation to other children and young people when bullying occurs. This can provide a helpful environment where there's no imbalance of power. But bear in mind that peer mediation will only be suitable to deal with certain types of bullying behaviour. Children and young people who are being picked on or teased, being called names or being put down, being ignored, left out, or having rumours spread about them might well benefit from this process. But it's not suitable in all cases. For example, violent incidents, prejudice and unlawful practices would require the support and intervention of adults. It's important to make these distinctions clear to all children and young people who are providing mediation and ensure that the support is available for all concerned. When it comes to building positive relationships, the overarching value that bullying is never acceptable should also be adopted throughout the relationships that we have. Building positive relationships based on respect and embracing difference is essential to the prevention of bullying. Teaching children and young people to negotiate relationships, socialise appropriately, and find non-bullying strategies to deal with conflict will create an environment where bullying is less likely to be accepted. Role modelling and self-awareness among adults is also important. The relationship between adults and children and young people should also mirror these values. Children will model their behaviour on what they are witnessing, and we should always be mindful of this. Lead by example. If you boss, judge and criticise, children and young people will think this behaviour is acceptable and will follow your lead. When it comes to celebrating equality and diversity, cultures that embrace diversity and promote equality send a strong message to young people about the importance of accepting difference and never discriminating. For example, you could celebrate LGBT History Month in February, or celebrate diverse cultural festivals. When it comes to your curriculum or personal and social education, our curriculum for excellence and its health and wellbeing component lends itself really well to exploring themes of positive relationships and equality and diversity with young people. So, now to our recap. There was a lot in Module 3. What ways do you recall right now of addressing bullying? Take a few minutes, see if you can think off the top of your head of 10 ways your organisation could contribute towards a culture of positive and respectful relationships. And then think which of these could you put into practice in your own role. So, thanks again for watching. We hope that's given you lots to consider about developing an effective policy and how to put an effective policy into practice. Don't forget to complete the SurveyMonkey link for this. All your feedback is so valuable to us. We look forward to you joining us in Module 4, which is all about effective ways to respond to bullying and manage incidents of bullying. Thanks again, and bye for now.